One of the big lies that we've been told over and over again for years, and again, some Americans start to believe it because they hear it over and over again, is that if you give tax cuts to the rich and to the corporations, everybody will benefit, it will all trickle down to everybody else. A lie. It has not happened, it has never happened. They don't need more tax cuts. Big corporations are now sitting on $2 trillion of cash. There are higher corporate profits now than we have seen in 35 years. The ratio of corporate profits to wages is now higher than it's been since before the Great Depression of the 1930s. And so when you hear somebody say corporations need tax cuts or they need regulatory so-called relief, they need to cut their costs, they need, in other words, to have even more profits to create jobs, don't you believe them. That is a downright bold-faced lie. Now another lie we hear over and over again, if you shrink government, you'll create more jobs. This is unbelievable. How it is that by shrinking government you create jobs. I debate a lot of people, a lot of conservative economists and others on television who keep on saying this, and I keep on saying, tell me your theory. How is it that if you lay off teachers and social workers and firefighters and police officers, if you have fewer people building the roads, building the highways, building the infrastructure, fewer people rebuilding our schools, fewer people doing all of the public's work, how can that create more jobs? And the answer I get is, government always gets in the way. I say, but tell me exactly, how is it that if you shrink government, you're going to create more jobs? Particularly when consumers are holding back because they can't do it. And the answer I get is, government always gets in the way. In other words, there is no intellectual basis for the ideology, and it is purely an ideology that says, if you shrink government, you get more jobs. If you shrink government, you get fewer jobs. But when the private sector is unable or unwilling, that is consumers and businesses unable or unwilling to spend enough to keep the economy going at full employment, then government is the spender of last resort. We've known this. We've known this for 30 years. Actually, we've known it for 80 years. We've implemented it over the last 50 years. But we've known it for 30 years, even though supply-side economists have started spouting this drivel about low taxes and trickle-down economics. We've known it. But now we hear this resurgent right saying no. But beyond a large enough stimulus, and I think the president did try. I saw his speech, many of you saw his speech, he sounded as forceful, as dynamic, as strong as I've heard him, and he made all of the right comments we need. By the way, I wish he had said one thing. The primary objective is jobs, not deficit reduction. We need jobs, not more cuts in the deficit. That is the primary objective. Almost there. And he came up with a jobs plan that is a good beginning, but it's not nearly large enough to do the size of the job that we need doing in this jobs crisis, this economic crisis. You remember the baby boomers? How many of you were born between 1946 and 1964? All of you. No. Well, we boomers had the advantage of huge investments in public education, in higher education, in public higher education, huge expansion. We invested in infrastructure, we invested in education, we had a tax structure in those years in which the top income earners never paid below a marginal income tax of 70%. 70%. In fact, under Dwight David Eisenhower, who nobody would call a socialist. I don't believe. Some would now. Yes. The top marginal income tax rate on the top earners was 91%. And even with deductions and tax credits, that still meant that they were paying an effective tax rate of hugely higher than they are today. And yet the economy grew faster. That lie about trickle-down, the lie that we must not tax the rich because that would deter them from working hard and investing in creating jobs, is nothing but a bald-faced lie based on ideology rather than facts. just like the 1950s, when I was told by my father the debt is going to be the biggest. No, the debt, if you get growth back, if you get jobs back, the debt shrinks as a proportion of the national economy. It becomes more and more manageable. And by the way, here's another lie. They are saying that the long-term debt that's out there 10 years from now is all because of Medicare and Social Security and all of the spending. It's not. The long-term debt out there is because of rising health care costs. Medicare is the most efficient system we have. The administrative costs of Medicare are so tiny relative to private insurance that what we really need, if we want to get Medicare and medical costs down in the future, is Medicare for all. And then we could move from a fee-for-service system to a fee-for-healthy outcome system, and that's what we need. And anybody who tells me that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, I've heard that recently. Can you imagine the irresponsibility? I mean, look at putting partisanship to one side. I've never heard a public official running for national office who lies through his teeth by saying the Social Security system is a Ponzi scheme. I was a trustee of the Social Security Trust Fund. I know exactly what the actuaries project. For the next 26 years, Social Security is purely solvent, completely solvent, there's no problem. Beyond 26 years, the only reason there is a problem with potentially being able to pay out everything Social Security owes beyond 26 years, you know why? Because of raging inequality, because so much money has gone to the top that the proportion of income subjected to Social Security taxes is not going to be enough. And that's why the easiest, most direct response to post 26 years from now is to raise the cap on the proportion of income. So we've got to tackle inequality. How do we tackle inequality? Well, one thing we can do is have tax reform that is real tax reform, not the kind of Republican tax reform that says we've got to raise taxes on poor, which is, again, as backwards as every other lie they are telling. But the real tax reform is we've got to expand the earned income tax credit, which is a way of subsidy for the poor. We've got to reduce taxes on the middle and the lower middle, and we've got to increase taxes on the top. Have more tax brackets, more brackets. Go back to where we were before. The greatest enemy we have is mass cynicism. Yes. Because when people really get to the point where they think nothing can be done, the other side wins. That's what they want, by the way. That's what they want. They want government because it is starved for money, because it is going to be underfunded, all the regulatory agencies. They want government at all levels to function so badly that people say, oh, well, government can't work. Told you. And they also want politics to be so bad and so paralyzed that most Americans say, nothing can be done. I'm going to give up on our democracy. They win. Don't allow cynicism to affect our body politic. Don't allow cynicism to affect your neighbors or friends or anybody. It is easy when they're scared and disorganized for people to be subject and vulnerable to demagogues who come along and say to them, you know, the reason you're in trouble is because of government, or it's because of immigrants, or it's because of the poor, or it's because of blacks, or it's because of a number of scapegoats that are always offered up. The same scapegoats. But in reality, we are all struggling over a smaller and smaller share of a bigger and bigger pie. And they are deflecting and diverting attention from the big story, which is that more and more of the income and wealth is going to the big corporations and to the very, very super rich in this country. And that is what has to be reversed, and that is why we have to take back America.